Welcome to Purple Rock Survivor Podcast, the podcast that has already been proven wrong about our winner picks in just 5 episodes. Andy, we were informed at the start of this episode that we've gotten some stories out of these people, but I didn't know that I necessarily felt that through the first 4 episodes. Did you?
I guess it would depend on how generous you want to be with the plural. Yeah, I guess there were stories in terms of Abby had several stories. Steven had a story.
Yeah, does branch chopping count as a story?
Does Joe continues to be amazing count as a story?
Does Sierra is standing behind a tree in the background count as a story?
Definitely not.
Okay.
But yes, last week was obviously a rough one, losing the star of the season in Jeff Varner. But the silver lining that I proposed was that, hey, we might be able to finally see all these other people we were excited to be on Survivor for. And I was happy to say we got that this week.
Yeah, I mean, and we said at the time, like, there are so many other good players in this cast that are finally going to get some exposure. And I don't blame them at all for saturating us with Varner those first 4 episodes. But yeah, now it's time to let some other people shine. And they stepped up. I would say that this is yet another great episode. And out of the first 5, probably 4 were pretty damn good.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure there was one that was necessarily not good. It was just cumulatively, it was like, okay, we're ready for something new.
Right.
So it wasn't like last week's episode was bad, but it was just like, yeah, it's getting repetitive. What was our major complaint? We obviously got to check in a bit with Crazy Abby, but, and in the small dosage we got last night, I was actually okay with it. But more, we got to see other people. And who knew that, the people we needed to see were, Kimmy and Monica.
Yeah, although I did love Abby one-upping everybody's story. And then she didn't just one-up the story, she actually one-down the story too. Like, oh, your mom had a heart transplant? Well, did you know I also had knee problems?
That's right. It's like being adopted and abused.
Right.
Similar things.
Totally the same thing.
But yeah, no, I was happy to finally check in with, pretty much everybody, right? I think we at least, checked in with everybody.
Yeah.
Sarah, she got to speak. I mean, maybe not Kelly Wigglesworth, but that dream is dead. It's never going to happen. And any evidence you want is the fact that she wasn't really focused on in this episode when most storytelling mechanics would have demanded it, but pretty much everybody else. And I was happy to see that. I was happy to be reminded that Steven is an engaging speaker that doesn't just talk about his own failures. I was happy to, see what was going on with Takeo. I was happy to see some of the dynamics going on in Bion.
Yeah, I actually wonder, though, if they're not even following Kelly Wigglesworth around with sound guys anymore, if it's just a camera, because they know it's just going to be B-roll.
A wasted effort.
Yeah,
unless
exactly.
She drops something heavy. And then it's like, you know what? We can just bring in Foley guys for that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's actually, people on Twitter were complaining about this. That's like, she's being ignored by Survivor. And I caution them. It's like, I don't know if they are snubbing her so much as she is snubbing them. It's not always a conspiracy, folks.
Yeah, I don't think she was dropping gold in their confessionals and they're hiding it from us. I don't think this is some vengeful thing. Pretty sure she's not giving them much to work with. But I do agree with you, though, that getting to see everybody else was great. Even Kimmy, who I had incredibly low expectations for, I felt like I enjoyed watching Kimmy in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to talk a good deal about Kimmy tonight, and I think for good reason. But I think, in this general sense of what that episode does and what we've been at this season brings us into a question we got from a reader.
Yeah, Brian wrote in to ask us. He said this pre-merge has been one of the most entertaining he can remember. And where would we rank this? And specifically, what elements do we think make for a fun pre-merge? I mean, I already kind of weighed in on this. I think so far we really haven't had a huge dud out of these first 5 episodes, which usually you get something that's at least completely predictable. And we might have seen some writing on the wall for some of these, but none of them, I would say, were totally formulaic, though.
No, it's been good. I think that's why we like All-Star seasons for the most part, because there's the heightened reality of it all. We don't need to wait to get to know people. They don't burn off people that we ever really bothered to get to know. we know them all and everything matters. Even like a Monica tonight, who was the least mattering person on this, season and on these tribes. We knew who she was. I mean, some people picked her to win. Kind of randomly and for reasons of, because of her anonymity, but still. So it all means something, and people, reacting to Monica, we care about these people even though they have not been featured that much. So that's I think the easiest one, and almost how it's like you have to be, I don't know, great on a curve, or it's hard to compare because heroes versus villains, even in retrospect, some of those might not have mattered, but at the time it seemed to matter that Sugar and Randy and Steph were all going. Like those were people that were the major characters of their season. So that's obviously, putting the thumb on the scale, but on top of that, we've had a lot of action and a lot of different kind of action, even if for the first 4 stories, or 4 episodes, they could kind of be boiled down to the same story of, oops, Abby did it again.
Yeah, the Abby constantly flopping thing. And that was fine. It had its run and it was entertaining. And now if the run's coming to an end, that's great. Or if it makes a brief reappearance somewhere down the line, that's also great. It's just that we wanted tonight's story to have switched, and it did.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, the Abby thing was more of like a continuing thread or a theme.
Yeah.
But within there was a lot of variety, whether it was, Vetus just being a big target early, or Shireen overplaying her hand, or PG falling victim to crazy Abby, or, the loss of Varner. Like, there were different things that happened all the time. There's also a reason why Varner was featured so heavily. They needed to, sell everything before it was gone, but also because he factored into every piece of every episode. So yeah, there was a lot of different things, and a lot of it was action as a result of people doing things, as opposed to your standard issue, this person isn't strong enough, let's get rid of, and let's be real here, her is what that usually is. So it's, I think just that's where the season has had an advantage. What do you think is a key ingredient for great pre-merge?
Well, and I don't even know that this season has necessarily had it, but I think a lot of times, if you're just having an enjoyable pre-merge, I think that's why they cast some of the over-the-top character types, because you assume they're not going to last very long, but you'll get a few episodes of entertainment out of them, and then they'll get burned off. I think they thought that's what they were going to get with Vince last season. I think, honestly, that's probably what they thought they were going to get with Coach, and it just the joke went a lot further than they thought it would. And they repeated it over and over.
Which I think they were thrilled with. Survivor has no issues with what they got from Coach at all.
I don't think so either. But I think generally if you get, 1 or 2 decent gameplay type things happening, you get, maybe an entertaining character that flames out early, those sorts of things that just keep the season interesting. In this season, I think they're working overtime, and I'm appreciating it, but they're working overtime to try to disrupt any potential alliances so that you can totally remove the opportunity to predict what's going to happen. And so far, it's been fairly effective, and that makes for an entertaining pre-merge.
One thing I should add in is, I don't know if it's all that necessary to have a great pre-merge.
Yes.
Or is it indicative of a good season? I think people get a little too worked up about that, and that, like, oh, this season can't be that great. The pre-merge was dull. It's like, who freaking cares? That's the beginning of the story. I'm more interested at the end of the story.
Yeah, well, you have to consider, like, if you have a great pre-merge that involves all of your best players or characters going home, you're going to have a terrible post-merge because what's left?
Yeah, and also, like, I think some people would say, lots of blindsides, lots of action, which has happened, although I think last night was the first true blindside.
Yep.
But I mean, like, things that we would not expect to have happened certainly happened. And it's like, yeah, well, I can't have too many explosions at the beginning. Becomes like an action movie that's all explosions. Like,
it's a Michael Bay film.
Yeah. I need the narrative to start to take shape. I need some table setting within that so that I feel like something is happening here. Not even so much that the show is telling me a story, because we never want the show to feel too manufactured, but that the people there know what the F they're doing. And you get this with people praising, not a lot of people, but some, praising like a San Juan del Sur. It's like, oh, week after week, we didn't know. It's like, yeah, because they didn't know.
Yeah.
I still want to have some level of confidence that we were being guided by a knowledgeable hand. Now, I will say this is an advantage that this season has, in that even though we're seeing missteps and, changes of direction and all of that, there's still so many people out there that could play and probably will play well that it's okay. And that a lot of the failures that have happened so far, be it Vetus or Shireen or PG, were a result of just other great players, outplaying good players. So.
Or even, like you said, overplaying your hand. I'd rather see someone overplaying like Varner or Shireen and then end up getting burned by it, then I would rather see someone, float by and then suddenly they appear in episode 5 and then they're voted out. Hey, speaking of which, let's talk about Monica.
Yes, we finally get to talk about Monica, and besides, where is she? Or, I guess she was there. And frankly, this is probably the first time in many people's lives that they will be talking about Monica Padilla in Survivor. Because, I didn't really remember her from Samoa.
You definitely didn't remember her from Gabon.
I mean, that could have been a Monica on Gabon. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, she was there, and I voted for her every time. But yeah, where did it go wrong for Monica?
I kind of feel like we didn't get much of a narrative on that, other than she suggested a women's alliance to Kimmy, who apparently was not having that.
Yeah, and I think that's what the show was pushing, and I think there's a nugget there. But yeah, that's definitely the story that the show was pushing, is that Monica, she was in the clear, the vote was for Kelly, and then she decided to go against her alliance and try something else, and it all blew up on her. And I think some of it is just shorthand from what seemed to be really the issue, and the only way you can really figure what really might have been going on with Monica, because she wasn't on the television program much, is by her exit interviews and like Stephen Fishbach's People thing has helped paint a bit of a picture. Because I'm always nervous about taking somebody's own hagiography of their exit interview as Bible of what was going on.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, but very egotistical people tend to have a very positive view of the game that they played.
And a very negative view of the people that beat them. Oh, they all made a huge mistake, and they're terrible at this game, and they're awful people. It's like, oh, wow.
Shock.
Yeah. But I think the dual perspectives has helped tell a bit of a story, especially since it's not like it's a glowing story. But first, I'm kind of interested in the story that Survivor was telling us, because I think the lesson that a lot of people walked away with immediately after last night was, well, Monica shouldn't have said anything. This is what you get for playing too hard too fast. And isn't that something that seems to happen or be presented a lot when a woman dares speak up about a different plan than what's going on?
Well, do you think instead that it was a warning signal to not suggest the women's alliance? Nice little subtle dig.
I mean, I don't think the show necessarily, although, they're certainly capable of subconscious narratives in that.
Uh-huh.
I do think that's a real thing. And, Emma pointed that out this summer in her piece about the Black Widow Alliance, that there is a huge fear amongst, especially male players, of women's alliances, that even if it's uttered, or not even uttered, if like 4 women are talking to each other, maybe over fabled mangoes or something, that people are afraid of a women's alliance. And I think it's because men fear women and their power, and B, because the Black Widows made the men, not only did they beat the men, but they made them look like the stupidest people to ever play Survivor.
Yeah, they punked them so hard that everybody's like, okay, well, I don't want that to happen to me.
Yeah, so you just have that little instance. It's like, oh, okay, no, we'll throw a challenge. We'll do anything to get rid of Monica. We'll get into that a bit. So So I do think that was a part of it there, but ultimately I don't think that's why Monica went home. I don't think what she was doing with Kimmy and what we saw was that egregious. All she was doing was talking to somebody with whom she believed she had an alliance, and in fact, if from the exit interviews, she thought was her main alliance, about, what do you think about Kelly maybe? And wouldn't it be nice if you and I went to the end with people that won't so easily beat us. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't think it was so sneaky what we were seeing in that instance.
No, it just felt like she was sort of sending out some feelers, like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Just throwing out ideas, feel free to shoot them down if you want to. It's okay. We're just brainstorming here. Didn't sound like she's going hardcore on the like, all right, let's do this, team. You fall in line. You're my lieutenant. We're going to bring Kelly along. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and we're going to target Jeremy or something like that. Yeah. Her counter was, maybe we should vote out Spencer, which, maybe they should have voted out Spencer. Like, this is a discussion worth having. However, I'm not going to absolve Monica in this. I did want to absolve the idea that, she was so wrong to have that conversation with Kimmy instead of just going along with the plan that the big men came up with. It sounds like what Monica's issue was, she was always strategizing like that. I sounds like she did mention at times of maybe we should make a big move to Steven. I think it was just kind of a dynamic, and obviously we can only get this from interviews because the show was not interested in this story at all. And frankly, maybe they shouldn't have been. I'm not faulting Survivor for not dedicating their season to Monica Badia. I think she had a poor social game. Clearly, she did not form the bond she needed to be able to have those conversations. To the person she thought she could have them with, Kimmy, kind of didn't seem to like her very much. And certainly had no problem with, throwing her under the bus. So I think that's where her flaw was. She played probably harder in the early part of the game than that tribe wanted to do. And it kind of goes back to what we were, the one story we were getting with Bayan is that it was the Andrew Savage Kumbaya Club. And she didn't fit in.
Yeah. And maybe that's an actual narrative that's happening. Maybe that's not Survivor crafting something from whole cloth here. So let's talk about Kimmy now, because Kimmy immediately, from what the edit shows us, runs to Jeremy and Steven, and she's like, hey, got news for you guys. Monica's not on board. It's not 4 strong. She's going after Spencer, which that's not actually not being 4 strong, but whatever. She mentions the Women's Alliance thing, and suddenly Jeremy and Steven are like, oh, and Kimmy, it seems like, actually orchestrated a vote, which is far more than I ever thought we'd get out of Kimmy this season.
Yeah, I see no reason to not give Kimmy the credit for that. I mean, ultimately, I believe it was like a team decision amongst the 3 of them, but I don't think that's where the decision was going to go. I think it was something that was in the back of their mind, which has, come up again in like Steven's blog, or even in Monica's, that she was not well aligned. She was near the bottom of the 10 Bayan to begin with. So that's why it probably wasn't a bridge too far for them. And I think that's also why her argument to them was so well received. It was never like oh no, I don't believe that Monica could do that. It's like, oh yeah, this is what we've been afraid of.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, Kimmy made it happen. But the question is, should she have?
Well, someone threw out this theory, and I kind of like it. And there's obviously nothing that we've seen on the show that backs it up, but it is an interesting theory. And the theory was that Kimmy might be stealthily working with Kelly and is trying to keep Wigglesworth around because of this old school alliance thing, or because of what we saw an episode or 2 ago with Varner mouthing something over to Kelly. It did seem pretty clear from what we saw at that point that Varner was mouthing something about Kimmy to Kelly.
But also about Monica.
And also about Monica. But it's possible that Kimmy and Wigglesworth did start to bond after that. And Kimmy's like, you know what? Hey, if I have to give up somebody, I want to keep Wigglesworth around, and I don't think I can sell them on voting out Spencer. So let's flip it on Monica instead.
Yeah, as you say, basically we've got nothing for that to go on.
Right.
That would just be and that's what the shallow storytelling of this part has given us. We basically have to resort to fan fiction tonight. But the one thing is that it seemed like Kimmy was upset that Monica was suggesting let's not vote out Kelly. It's like she could have just voted with Kelly and Monica if that was kind of a thing with her.
Right.
Instead, it was like, how dare you suggest we vote out Spencer? You're gonna die. So yeah, about that, it was like I'm of 2 minds whether, credit to Kimmy for doing it, but again, should she have? On the one hand, getting rid of people who want to work with you because, they want to work with you, that's not great Survivor strategy. It's like, how dare she try to make a final alliance with me? But on the other hand, I kind of think what Kimmy was doing there, she was making a business decision.
Yep.
And that decision was, who long term will give me better success? Is this flimsy idea of a women's alliance with a player like Monica, who I already don't feel very good about, and we'll get into possible reasons why, at least the reasons the show gave us. But also just, Monica is not strong. She has not formed a lot of social bonds. They had 5 women on Takeo, and it sounds like Monica got along with 2 of them. Meanwhile, Jeremy and Steven seem like they are people who could go the distance. And in the original Bion, it sounded like Kimmy was, at the beginning at least, number 10. And and then as it progressed, somewhere between 8, 9, 10, sharing those positions with Monica and Steven. She's moved right up, I would say, right? I think she, especially with that move, she saved them from the tricky Monica. Yeah. She came to them. She can be trusted. So I think maybe in selling out Monica, she found better alliance partners for her needs.
Right. She's basically throwing Monica under the bus to give herself some loyalty credibility with these guys. Like, oh, look, I'm the loyal ally. I brought you this information. You can clearly trust me. We can go far together. And I think you're right. Like, if you're looking at possible alliance partners, I mean, not that you wouldn't want to align with Monica, because like you said, the fact that she's weak and doesn't have strong bonds is probably not really a bad thing if you can make her your only, or make yourself her only bond, at least once you get to post-merge. But that's playing a post-merge game now, and it's way too early for that. So play the odds, go with Steven and Jeremy. I think it was the right call.
Yeah. And it's like she's got a long time she has to get to post-merge, and I don't think Monica is the vehicle to get her there.
Right.
I don't think her and Kelly are the vehicles to get her there. Jeremy and Steven very well might be.
And also, Monica was trying to force Kimmy to starve.
Yeah, what a weird reversal, huh? Kimmy Kappenberg gets very annoyed when somebody suggests that they stop killing living things for their food needs. Now, I don't know if this shows that Kimmy has, taken a more pragmatic approach to her dietary needs on Survivor, or if she's more like a pescatarian or whatever. I'm not sure where, crabs fall. But it does get into, a semi-interesting debate. Was Kimmy right to be like, no, let's just eat these freaking clams? Or was Monica right to suggest that we should not deplete the system because we are going to be here a while?
Well, first of all, Kimmy can eat the clams because clams don't have a soul like chickens do, so it's perfectly okay.
I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the Bible. I looked it up.
But those chicken souls really taste great, especially when they're deep fried, right?
So good. It's the best part of the chicken. But I get Monica's point, but at the same time, if San Juan del Sur taught us nothing, it's that they will not let you starve. And yes, Monica's right in the macro perspective, save food for later. That's the good idea. But at the same time, you're just assuming you're going to be around. Eating now will help you maybe stay around. So eat it all up. Let them replenish it. Who cares if they don't replenish it as much? They're not going to let you starve.
Yeah, and I think some people were like, that's stupid, Monica, thinking that, they're going to eat all the fish in the ocean or whatever. It sounds like no. It sounds like at the beginning of this very season, which we should remind people is a full season after this beach was already used for an American version of Survivor. They shot the next season prior to this one. And there may have been international ones that are also depleted the natural resources. But it sounds like the beginning of this season, there were a lot more clams on Bion than there was at that point. So she's not wrong. They are eating more than that ecosystem can support. However, dun dun, eat it while you got it, because you might not be around when it's saved. Yeah? You might be switched over to Angkor. You might be switched over to Takeo. You might be voted out.
Or maybe, you merge and you're on a different beach.
Exactly. So my basic philosophy, when it comes to Survivor, and you were right to point out San Juan del Sur because it was a great example, and also I think where this question kind of came to the forefront is, food eaten is food eaten. Mm-hmm. You get that benefit. Food saved may never become food eaten. Now, we'll say with provided storable food, like beans or rice, yes, you do some level of reasonable rationing. But in terms of found food, just freaking eat it.
Yeah.
Eat it now, because also your stomach, it sounds like on Survivor, your body gets a accustomed to the starvation. It's harder at the beginning than it is at the end. And moreover, there's fewer people as you progress, so then there's fewer needs. So yeah, Kimmy was 100% right here. And Monica should have let that go. And is that why Monica went? No, I think but it is, emblematic of, I think, the continued symptoms of what life with Monica was like. I think people were just annoyed with her at that point.
Well, we've already established, yes, good move for Kimmy, at least somewhat. But what about Steven and Jeremy?
Yeah, that's the tougher thing because they may be working with imperfect information. Yeah, it's basically how much do you believe Monica, or how much do you believe Kimmy?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then that's two questions. If you believe her, is it still the right move? Or if you not? I would say if you believe Kimmy, that Monica is scheming against you, then I think she instantly does become more dangerous than both Spencer and Kelly because of who Spencer and Kelly are. I think Spencer, they are right in that he will be loyal to them because he's got no other choice. He's in desperate need of alliance, and they're it, So, yeah, I think not voting on him makes sense, especially for Jeremy, who wants all the meat shields he can get. Kelly is just Kelly, I think the threat of her, teaming back up with Takeo is overblown. At the very least, it's on par with the threat of Monica teaming up with other women, right?
You know what Kelly is? She's basically Cagayan Wu, where she's just there. You don't really have to worry about voting her out. Just keep her around. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, do you even need to sneak off to strategize when Kelly's there? Or you just be like, oh, don't worry, she's not going to say anything. So yeah, if you believe that about Monica, now the flip side is, I don't think Monica was actually flipping on them at that moment. But, I mean, from her own interviews, it sounds like she was strategically active without having a strategic partner. And I think some of that is what happens is she wanted to prove to everybody, and everybody being us, the fans, that she actually could play Survivor because, her first go around, she did not. So she was out there trying to do stuff and everybody's like, yeah, whatever. So I do think that she might have been the more dangerous player, as weird as it is to say.
Well, and you also pointed something out earlier, which is that she was very likely at the bottom of that original Bayan Tribe alliance. And so Steven was legitimately worried about looking like the disloyal Bayans that voted out one of their own once they end up coming back together. But at the same time, if she was at the bottom, they can always craft the story that, hey, she knew she was at the bottom. She was trying to turn on us. We took her out now. We're all team with you guys. We're still together.
Yeah, I did like that scene with Steven because it for one, it shows some outside of the box thinking that there are levels to this. And I think Steven was right that there is risk inherent for him that there is not for Jeremy. In that we know that Andrew Savage thinks of him as a sneaky person.
Yes. So just like Kimmy is coming with this Monica loyalty thing, like here's some red meat for you with this Monica information, Steven can then go to Savage with this red meat of, hey, look how I'm loyal to this group and how I took out this traitor who was going to betray us.
He could, but yeah, his worry is that Savage, he'll end up on a tribe with Savage.
Yep.
And no Jeremy, no Kimmy, like nobody to corroborate his story. And Savage would be like, you just did exactly what I thought. This is why you were a cancer, why we had to get rid of you.
The wiki was right.
Yeah, exactly. Wiki! So I think it was interesting. But that said, and to your point, it was Monica. If it was a different Bayan, I think there would come with it greater risk. But I believe that everybody knew where Monica was on the pecking order, which was somewhere around, if not lower than Steven. So I don't think anyone will have a big problem believing that she was eliminated due to being a threat.
Yeah, and all of this worked out great for Spencer, by the way, who I loved Spencer's reaction as the votes are being read, because as soon as the first Monica vote comes up, they flip the camera over to him and he's like, oh, cause he knows why would there be any Monica votes? So he knows right then, and he's sitting next to Wigglesworth, who clearly is just oblivious. She has no idea what's happening.
Well, I do think he was shocked, like, what?
Yeah. But I think he immediately recognizes what's happening there, though.
Yeah, and I think he also just knew I'm good. I mean, He probably thought he was good once he saw a second Kelly vote, but it's like, Before we get into Spencer, do you think they did the right move in not telling Spencer the move? in going 3-2-1 versus 4-2 or whatever.
Yeah, there's no reason to clue in Spencer or Kelly, because if anything, that just adds risk to your plan. You've got the 3 votes that you need. Just play it safe, keep it to as many or as few people as you can, and execute it. And that's what they did.
Yeah, unfortunately, like with the first half hour of this podcast, I have to agree with you. We'll have to find ways not to agree, coming up. I'm not sure they're there, but I'm sure there is. Yeah, absolutely. I think too many people worry about majorities. You don't need majorities in voting, you need pluralities. And I think it's just Americans don't understand how you can vote for more than 2 people.
If only we had prime ministers here, we'd understand.
Who you don't vote for, P.S.
Yes. But back to Spencer though, they're laying on the Spencer growth arc pretty thick, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it's at this point thicker than the Abby is crazy narrative, I think.
Yeah.
And people who are tiring of it, I would say I'm sympathetic, but it ain't going nowhere.
No, I'm actually not. I mean, I kind of like it. I think obviously it's laid on way too thick, but I think there is a grain of truth to this story. Like, I think this is why I had done a turnaround on him before the season started. From everything that I've read of him and heard from him since Cagayan, he legitimately recognized the mistakes that he made. He's very analytical. He reflected on what he did wrong, what he could have done better. And I think he's legitimately trying to improve and seemingly at least succeeding.
Yeah, I think also he's a savvy person who understands what story they want from him and has no problem giving it to him. But I think it's also true. And I think people often complain about edits, like, why would they do that if not this? What was this trying to tell us? And every once in a while I have to caution people. It's like, well, maybe it's true. Yeah. And maybe that's why they're showing it to us.
Maybe people did like Savage's story.
Yeah, and maybe, that Terry really feels this way or something like that. It's like, oh, I must portend to this. Or it's like, or maybe it's a thing that happened and they needed to portray reality as it happened. I'm not Pollyanna enough to assume that they're not faking reality often. Right. I think in this very episode, the chronology was all thrown off. I think the Monica discussion may have happened prior to immunity. But yeah, I do think Spencer is learning. He's upgrading his firmware and it's working out. And I thought what he did tonight was really good. And that thing that he did tonight was not do too much.
Yes.
And I can only imagine how difficult that must have been.
Oh, and I totally understand. But because, again, I think this is why I'm enjoying this so much, is because I can completely relate to Spencer. And I think Fishback probably could too, because in the same situation, he'd be much like Spencer, freaking out in his head. I don't know that even Fishback is calm enough to just be like, all right, you know what? I just gotta play it cool, shut my mouth, let it happen, convince them that I'm loyal.
I can guarantee you he's not. I think Fishback does not have that quality in him. And he would tell you that. I think he would tell you that it's what you need to do, but he just can't do it. He is a flibberty fidget or whatever. You never say that. I don't know why I try to say it all the time. I can't say it.
Words are hard.
Yeah. They're so much easier to type. Talking. So bad. Why did I get into this? But yeah, he's a paranoid, fidgety person who is constantly doing that. Checking in and rechecking in and doing that sort of thing. And it's probably the biggest flaw of his game besides chopping things.
Right.
I think this happens a lot and people confuse, when inaction is actually the best move. It's that, why didn't that person do anything? Why were they just sitting there? A, for one, sometimes they weren't and they just were edited that way. But B, sometimes doing stuff can hurt you more than not doing stuff, which is so tough because sometimes the opposite is actually also true.
Yes.
In that not doing something was the bigger risk than doing something. But this is one of those instances. All Spencer could do was check in with Jeremy and Steven, let them know that he's loyal, he's down for whatever they want, and then just walk away. Because if they saw him talking to Kelly, talking to Monica, talking to Kimmy, they'd be like, what's this motherfucker doing?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's a good contrast with Monica, who was apparently scheming too much.
Yeah. And, we see this other people. I think Shireen had this issue where she couldn't just let things go the way it is. Yeah. And I totally get it.
Yep.
Especially if you feel like, as Spencer should, that I'm on my neck's on the line. What can I do? It must be so hard to realize the thing you need to do is nothing.
Yes.
Because the whole reason why he'd be targeted is because they feel like he is a strategic threat, that he is going to be out there, that he is being disingenuous with them. And you can only prove them right.
Yeah, exactly. So if they see you then scrambling to save yourself, they're going to, self-fulfilling prophecy. Haha, you thought you were in danger. Now you're in danger because you tried to save yourself.
And yeah, bravo for him for recognizing it because, yeah, obviously some of it, he being analytical, realizing the situation. Some of it's strategy, but some of it's just understanding the vibe and emotions that dictate decisions.
Also, Spencer, low-key challenge beast.
I don't even know where this idea that he wasn't has gotten into it. It's just because they coded him a nerd and threw him on the Brains tribe, but...
that is exactly what it is. I mean, if you remember, in Cagayan, he was in, that basketball challenge, like, he was solely responsible for, like, shooting the ball, jumping into the water, getting it, and shooting it again because his tribe was so inept.
Yeah, he almost outpaced former professional basketball player, 2-time All-Star at that sport, while his, inept tribe. Now, obviously, Cliff Robinson was dealing with a tribe trying to lose. Right. But still, like, every step of the way, Spencer's been good at this stuff. And just look at him. Like, he's a tall dude. He's young. I believe he plays, like, intramural sports. Like, he is not like somebody who's just like, oh, I've never picked up a ball before. He's not Stephen Fishbach,
Yeah.
And it's just cause, like, he's like kind of a nerd, that's true, but you can be two things, yeah.
Yeah, well, not in Survivorland, though.
Yeah, and look, I get why, like, the show might have tried to portray that he wasn't, but I don't know why anybody's surprised now. It's like, yeah, no, like, he's good at this stuff. We know this. There's like a long period. This isn't low-key threat. He is the most athletic member of that tribe, and I include Jeremy in that statement.
I say low-key because just looking at him, he doesn't appear to be all that physical a threat. You just assume like, oh, he's an average challenge performer. But no, he's legit good. Like he was in that challenge. He was going toe to toe with Joe, who is clearly a legit challenge performer. And just because they've cast him into this nerd role, like you don't see Probst just screaming out, Spencer dominating this challenge.
Yeah. And I guess it's just not the story they want to tell with Spencer, but it's like, it's there. Like, he's not Stephen Fishbach. He's not John Cochran. And he doesn't look like that. And he's a tall, fit guy. And he's, young, like super young, like annoyingly young.
I don't know that he did CrossFit like Fishbach did, though.
Well, Fishbach should have done less CrossFit and more lumberjack.
Let's talk about another tribe, by the way, because we were talking about how we had, stories on all these tribes, and we've spent like the last half hour talking about one. So let's move on to some other tribes. We actually, we did get a glimpse of the tire fire that is Angkor, down to 4 people now.
But rallying! 2 wins for Angkor.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed we didn't get the Kumbaya Andrew Savage rah-rah speech, though.
If we did, we would have gotten Happy Maria saying, I don't know why saying me. It's me. This is why I'm the reason. It's me. And also one time I hurt my knee. That was a horrible accent.
That was really, really bad. That's probably worse than your Keith, I think. Anyway, does it feel to you like everybody's kind of over Abby Maria at this point?
Yeah, 1,000%. In fact, I threw this on there just to say I was right. That was what was going to happen. And good for them. The worry is, what if they can't get rid of her in time?
Especially if Takeo at this point is like, we could stand to lose a challenge. It's sort of like Bayon didn't seem like they cared that much to have lost.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy sat out that challenge.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that really quickly for a second, because there's a little bit of rumors floating out there that maybe possibly they threw the challenge. What do you think?
Okay, first of all, I don't think Jeremy sitting out the challenge is indicative of them throwing it, because you don't need Jeremy's particular skill set for that challenge. If you remember last season, the tribe that won it was like Will, Shireen, Carolyn. These are not exactly like all-world athletic superstars here. You don't need someone built like Jeremy to launch one of those slingshots. All you need to do is hold on to it and fall backwards. It doesn't matter if you're 80 pounds. You can still launch that thing.
Yeah, and then not aim it in the direction of your
other tribes.
Targets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that's necessarily, but it's a bit of a red flag, right? I'll say that, and in the secret scenes, he was just like, well, I wanted to do it, but then Kimmy really said she wanted to do it. And he acquiesced, I think, to, for tribe, loyalty reasons, not just to say, no, it needs to be me always.
Yeah.
Especially since he stepped up last week for the heroes and lost. And frankly, I think Spencer probably would have done better at that challenge than him.
Agreed.
Just height alone would have given him an advantage going through the water. And then Steven wrote in, actually just on a tweet reply, it's like, they didn't really throw the challenge, but they weren't that upset to lose it. So I think that's where it was. And that's why I do think there might have been a playing around chronology. I think maybe they were already gunning for Monica at that point. In that it's like, well, if we lose, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did they discuss throwing the challenge? Probably. I think discussing the throwing of challenges happens far more frequently in Survivor than we were ever shown. Mm-hmm. I think we were basically only ever shown when it happens or when it starts to happen and then doesn't.
I like how you steered us back to the tribe that we just moved on from, though.
It was just one thing that I didn't think about when we were talking about what we were going to talk about tonight, but it has come up since.
Well, really, we don't even have much more to talk about with Angkor anyway, because what we got of them was, 3 minutes of people rolling their eyes at Ivy Maria. So unless you have anything to add, let's talk about Takeo.
Yeah, no, it was good. Again, with Takeo, we didn't really get a lot of new information. What we had pieced together from before was true. That it's 5 and Terry.
Yep.
And Kelly Wentworth's plans have, worked out. But the bigger question is that 5, did we see the beginning of the final 5 alliance of the season?
Top 5, baby. Seems very premature, and I can see a lot of issues with that particular 5. Joe, I think, is just get in wherever you can. Joe needs to say yes to any potential alliance.
I like how he asked, it's like, oh, my season, they wanted to get rid of me right away, but you guys won't go do that, right? I feel like nobody could look him in the eye and it's like, oh, no, Joe, no.
I love how he just shines a spotlight on it. You guys aren't going to vote me out because it would make sense since I'm really good at challenges, right?
Yeah. And for his sake, it was like, maybe there's no point beating around the bush.
Right.
But I think it was Kelly's like, oh, I have no interest in doing that. It's like, bull.
Yeah, not yet.
I've actually heard her say in interviews, like, hey, it's great that she's doing all this stuff. I have no desire to go to the end with him, though, but let him be our cabana boy.
Yep.
So I think Joe would be the big problem with whether that is a Final 5 alliance. But other than that, it's kind of a nicely balanced group for the other 4 people.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's almost like there's not super strong bonds with any pairs in there, so that you feel comfortable that you're not going to get screwed over by a subgroup within your alliance.
And each of those 4 should feel like they have ways to beat the other 3.
Exactly.
Some of them might be wrong, but you can see why they would think that, Kelly Wentworth.
Well, the fun thing is that no matter what, 3 of those people would be wrong.
Yes, of course. Well, I suppose they'd be right about 5 to the end, but wrong about winning. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, no, and there's some versatility to it, but no, the bigger question is this going to be the end? No, because I think this show has a lot more things up its sleeve.
Right. And I think that, sure, that might last for a little while, but I think once conversations start happening in a post-merge situation, things are going to fall apart.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us into a big picture topic I wanted to discuss. It's so we're 5 episodes in, and obviously one of the biggest story I think going in after, we get to vote for these people is, it's all a bunch of pregame alliances. Everybody's going to pregame. It's going to be dominated by pregaming, and there was a lot of pregaming. There's probably more pregaming this season than any other season.
Yep.
Because simple mechanics.
They knew who was going to be on.
Or at least who was in the running to go on.
Yep.
However, you and I were very negative on that idea. It's like, yeah, we can talk about it and they can do it, but pre-gaming is overrated. And then, they made their first tribe alliances and those bonds stuck, but now we've had one, swap. I think there's going to be another swap and there's going to be a merge. So the question is, what do we think the impact of both pre-gaming alliances and the first tribe alliances has been so far?
I think I might have even said this in the preview, but I think it's a boxing adage that everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Everybody here had their plan. And then someone had to get punched in the face and then everybody had to realign their plans.
Yeah, look at what the pairings and the groupings are and try to tell me which of these people were aligned pregame. Do you think Tasha and Savage were?
Right.
Do you think Steven and Jeremy were? And everybody thought Monica and Sierra were, and Monica's like, no, I don't even know her, and I didn't really like her that much. Yeah, I think the big worry about pre-gaming is what we've always said. if you make too big a deal with your pregame alliance, all you're doing is picking the person who will betray you.
Yep.
Jeff Varner really paid off for all his pregame alliances, and all of his pregame alliances sure paid off for him. I think the lesson here is, in terms of pregaming, what you do is get to know people a little bit, so that you can start in with some conversations. But that's it. The game is the game, and it's going to do what it needs to do. And I think it always has.
Yeah, and it's just establishing a baseline so that when you get out there and you're forming your actual alliances, you have some foundation to build from. That's about all you should really be doing.
Yeah, I think Kelly Wigglesworth is playing as though her pregame alliance will still take her through, but, it's, Jeff Varner and Shane aren't there anymore, so I think she might be in trouble.
Well, Shane was never there, so exactly. She was always in trouble with that.
And then in terms of first tribe alliances, I think we're already starting to see a bit of a breakdown. I mean, obviously, we just saw Bion vote out one of their own. Yeah, admittedly, maybe not one that was a power broker. But a question that I've had when we see, the final 5 into KO type plan, we see Jeremy and Steven and Kimmy making a big alliance. Has Savage kind of been edged out of his own, first alliance?
It's way too early to tell. We have to see when they come back together what the new dynamic is. It certainly helped Steven, I think, to be out from under that shadow, and get to know Jeremy better. And I would guess there was some significant pregame chatter between Spencer and Steven anyway. But I would guess that it's much more of the foundational type stuff that I was talking about. So now that they are together on a tribe, they're probably fairly well aligned. We're just not seeing it yet.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why swaps happen.
Yep.
And to get back to the discussion we led this podcast off with, what makes for a good pre-merge is Survivor needs to switch it up enough so that a status quo isn't established too early. You want enough of a one so that it makes some kind of narrative sense, but you need some interruptions to it. Hopefully the players do it themselves through votes, but also swaps are an important mechanic because nothing is worse than pre-merge begonging, basically.
Well, and if nothing else, by switching things up, you plant some seeds that might actually bear fruit later on when merges happen, when swaps happen, those sorts of things.
Actually, this leads into a question that we got over Twitter from our friend XL Pelican. I was going to discuss it earlier, but I think it fits here. When do you guys think a merge is coming? Is no dissolve before a merge a possibility, assuming we lose 2 in the very next episode? Which we thought there might have been 2 this episode that just passed, and we were obviously wrong.
Right.
But I think it's still out there just due to the math of 20 people and 13 episodes.
13, 14 episodes. It has to happen at some point. And it seems fairly likely that they would do that pre-merge and then probably one later on down the line if it gets predictable. So we're at 15 people left. So if we lose 2 next episode, assuming that next episode does lose two people, we'd be down to 13. That seems too big to just merge at.
Yeah.
I can understand it being 12, but if it's 12, why would you even bother going down to true tribes for just one vote? Unless this is just Survivor Fiji and you're throwing against the wall to see what sticks. I still feel like 13 is probably too big.
Yeah, I think even 12 is a little difficult to manage. Just, bodies in a shelter type deal is difficult. And, there's interest still to be had in team events and that sort of thing. And not just, the physical shelter and supporting 12 people, but trying to tell the stories of 12 individuals versus 2 teams. Yeah, again, they've merged at 12 before. It could certainly happen. I think they will go down from 3 to 2 simply because they never haven't. It's always been a thing, and I think also that's what they were doing when they went from 2 to 3, was to allow room for one more swap, thus, hopefully breaking any of the pregame bonds that we were just talking about, that we kind of already think are broken.
Yeah, and so then...
When? I think it might be next episode. Our preview didn't seem to give a great diversity of time in that. They basically kind of showed a few scenes that could have easily been the cold open. Like, we don't see challenges, we don't see, tribe life, at least as far as I recall. So I don't think there's any reason to suggest that we might not be dissolving into 2 tribes next week.
that's certainly a possibility. It could happen right away. It could happen when they're down to 14. Yeah, and then you go 2 votes. I still think, like I said, 12, maybe 11, like Palau. I feel like they're going to try to give us a bigger merge this time.
Yeah, but like 2 votes and swap 2 votes and merge isn't unheard of. That's pretty common, actually. Like That's what they did in China. Whether they hastened it to prevent the constant throwing of challenges or not is another question.
Yeah, but so to answer his question, I don't think so, but I'm not going to rule it out just because it does seem like, especially with returning players, they're much more willing to take risks.
Yeah, but I frankly would be interested in seeing the 3 become 2 and reshuffle the deck a bit. Which, I mean, the worry there is then things just become so random as to have no meaning. But I think these people, and especially the storytelling so far, they can withstand that so far. It's not like we'd be losing too many long-term stories at this point if they switched it up one more time.
Yeah. All right, so we're not going to do predictions this week because there's the preview and various clues that we've seen have kind of made fairly obvious what's probably going to happen. We don't necessarily, like Andy just said, know when it's going to happen in next episode, but we're going to just skirt around this topic because we don't want to spoil anybody. If you haven't pieced it together, we don't want to ruin it for you. So instead of predictions this week, let's do what I wanted to do since week 1, 0% Club, which we haven't done at all this season. So Andy, make the very first inductee of the season.
Yeah, just real quickly, another reason why we're not doing predictions is just because there are major spoilers out there. We have not seen the spoiler in terms of this is the 6th person to leave, but we know it's out there, so just heads up, everyone. And that's another reason why we're not going to go anywhere near that. We do not want to become an outlet for spoilers for people trying to avoid them. In terms of 0% Club, no spoilers here. Abby would be the first inductee. It seems like her honorary position at this point.
Yeah. You're going to be surprised, but no protest here. Abby's in there.
Even people are trying to say she's been doing what she needed to do. It's like, try to explain to me a single circumstance in which 4 people decide that they would love to reward her with $1 million, and you can't.
And frankly, it's probably going to need to be even more than 4, unless it's a plurality situation. Yeah. But I will one-up that Abby by throwing Wu in with her.
See, and there's finally some disagreement.
Yeah. Okay, and I kind of figured there might be. And I get it, because this is certainly, it seems like, a better version of Wu than we got in Cagayan. But I don't care, because it's still Wu. I don't see people wanting to say they lost to Wu.
Well, I can say why. They wouldn't have wanted to lose to the Wu you had in your head. But what about the evidence we're getting? And this actually kind of gets to a good philosophical debate of what the 0% Club is. Is it, I don't really like that person, I don't think they're going to win, and I'm just going to put my stamp on it? Or is it, I'm going to go based on the clues that I've been given so far? And I think what we've been given so far doesn't rule Wu out. I would say I would be shocked as hell if Wu were to win Survivor. But that's not the same as saying he has 0 chance at this time in this game.
My reasoning, in part, is exactly what I just said, is that I don't feel like other players are going to vote for him. But at the same time, I think there's also been clues within the show that, he's still the guy who, when the votes are read, is looking around like, wait, that's who the votes are for? Mm-hmm. Not to say that hasn't happened to winners before, because Fabio won a freaking season. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like there's enough of a narrative here where Wu is a winner. Wu is something different than last time, but I said earlier that they're laying it on very thick with the Spencer growth arc. There seems to be enough there that if you were doing that same sort of thing, you could do it with Wu. And that's not happening.
Yeah, I'd say my counter, and I guess one reason why this isn't going to be a fruitful argument is not that I'm going to argue for Wu as the winner. Right. My argument is that he isn't at 0 for me. And that, he's looked good in the past 2 weeks. And people on the show have remarked on it, typically when they're voting for him or whatever. But still, Jeff Harner's like, oh, you rock. And PG has been very complimentary of him. And that, kind of like, what I suggested with Cass, and that she set the bar for her personal growth so low that people get out there and realize, oh, Cass isn't so bad.
Yep.
Suddenly she's great. Well, Wu just, arguing for himself at Tribal Council. Tasha mentioned it in this episode. Maybe these are the beginnings of a growth arc. He would have to do a lot more than just, telling people why they shouldn't vote. They should vote for the crippled guy instead of him. But maybe these are indicators that he will do more. So where I stand with Wu at this point is he's like a 2% chance to win.
That seems a little generous.
So, and also I would also say that this season feels fluid enough, and it's one of the reasons why it's good so far, that a lot of people have a chance to win. There are definite favorites, but I don't think there's an overwhelming favorite just yet.
Right. And I do have one. Do you want to do another one?
Yeah, Kelly Wigglesworth, I know.
Okay, so that's where I was going anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, and even getting into what we were saying is like they're not featuring her because she's not giving them anything. And it's like reporters on the scene have come out and said they tried to pull stuff out of Kelly. She gave them nothing, and they just said, "That's it, I'm done." So even with that, if she were the winner, they would have to find something. Yeah. Even if it was the most boring something, and they would at least have Kelly like commenting on what it was like to lose a vote the way she has a couple times, what it was like to swap and be down the numbers and what she needs to do. The fact that she's not won a single reward yet. Like there are things, even if it's like the shortest, dullest soundbite, they'd pull it from her. And even if there's none of that, they would have people talking about her. Yes. They would do something.
That's the thing, is if she can't narrate, they would get people to narrate about her.
Yeah, and there's nothing there. And like, you could say, oh, well, there's nothing there for Sierra. Are you going to put her in your 0% club? And the answer is no, because there hasn't been a reason to feature Sierra yet. She has not gone to Tribal Council. Kelly's gone 5 times now? Is that? No, 3 times.
3.
Yeah. So, generally, and one of them, she was, this episode, she was the other choice. She was the misdirect, and there was nothing there. So.
Couldn't even bother to give her a talking head in that one.
Yeah, or people talking about her other than, Kelly, sure, Kelly.
Yep.
Until it was quickly not Kelly. So yeah, it's not Kelly. It's never going to be Kelly. She could last 39 days and she would not win.
Okay, well, you know what? You just tapped me out. That was my 3 that I had for the 0% club. I was so excited to put a bunch of people in, and that was really all I could legitimately throw in there.
And now you guys know why I decided that this won't be a weekly segment, because I believe this is accurate. I think we're being honest here. I think this is true. And I think if we were doing this every week, we might have been like, Keith, because we never thought Keith could win. But it's like, well, but let's wait till there's a reason to say he can't. Right. And it hasn't happened yet. I don't think he will win.
Nope, I don't either. That's the thing is 0% club does not mean that we don't think the person will win. There's some supporting evidence that indicates the person won't win.
And here's the thing, like, I don't even know if we would have 0%ed anybody that's gone yet. Like, maybe Monica through invisibility, but it's kind of like the same deal as Sierra. It's like, let's wait till we find it yet.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we wouldn't have said Shireen, we wouldn't have said PG. Nope. Farner, we definitely wouldn't have said. Even when you were predicting him to lose, you wouldn't have said he has no chance.
Exactly.
And I think that also, again, getting back to the discussion that led this off, might be why this has been a great pre-merge. We haven't disqualified half of the cast in 5 episodes.
Right.
All right. I think that's the show. We should tell people what they can do to help us.
Okay. Well, we now have our Amazon link that you can get to directly by going to purplerockpodcast.com/Amazon. If you happen to be shopping at Amazon, please use it. It offsets some of our costs for the show. If you don't, fine, whatever. I don't care. It's a hobby. We spend money on our hobbies. We're weird.
Yeah, it's just basically there are some costs associated with doing this thing we do. We've been incurring them, and that's fine, as John says. But if you'd like to help us out, we would like to try to get closer to revenue neutral. We're not trying to make money here. We feel weird about asking for money, and that's why we thought the Amazon one was the best solution. We're not asking you to send us any money. We're just, if you want to help out and you're buying stuff anyway, you use the link. You can also find it through our homepage.
And exactly. And it'll occasionally make appearances on the featured spot in our homepage. We're not going to dwell on it much other than right now for the very first time. Also, if you just go to purplerockpodcast.com by itself, you can find a lot of other really good stuff that we've been doing. We've got our fantasy league going strong. Emma's writing an article for us every week. Matt or Mark does the live blog every week for us. You guys, as soon as the episode is done, East Coast time, actually, as the episode is going East Coast time, you can tune into that live blog, and there's comments there. We get hundreds of comments every week from some very good commenters. I love the comments that we get in our live blog section.
Yeah, basically the reason why this podcast exists is because you and I found a comment section that was a little more attuned to the way we experience Survivor. There's a lot of different communities within Survivor on the internet, and not every one of them is for everyone. I'm not even going to trash those other ones, except to say that they do their thing. And
yes.
This is our thing. And I think that's what's been great about our site. And one of our motivations for building this up is so that we could spend time amongst people who enjoy Survivor. Not necessarily exactly the way we do, but attuned to the way we do, and more communicate Survivor in a funny and civil way. And if that's the sort of thing that you like, you should come and visit.
I just realized something. What if the next Survivor podcast comes from our comment section and then trumps us?
Oh no.
We gotta shut it down now.
We've created what we were. We'll just say that right now. The reason why none of you would want to do that is we just talked about all the significant costs that such a thing entails, so.
Yes. Oh my God. Thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So, if you also want to hear us, have pithy little comments about Survivor, you can follow us on Twitter. The show /John is Purple Rock Pod. I am Purple Rock Andy, remembering my name.
Yes, good job. First time. We're also on Tumblr, which Andy and Emma do for us, and that's purplerockpodcast.tumblr.com. And if for some reason you want to email us, as we had someone do this week, the email address is purplerockpodcast@gmail.com.
And as always, you can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes and Stitcher. All right, so next week, something's going to happen that, a good amount of us know and some of us don't. Be careful when you're visiting those other places we talked about, as I said. Not our place, though. Spoiler free.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah.
Decent talk.
Decent talk. Let's play some decent music.
That's what it's like when a woman wants a baby.